The morning started like any other. Old Farmer Jalen walked out of his wooden house, boots crunching on the cold grass. His land stretched far and wide, brown soil, golden cornfields, and broken fences. He lived alone now, just him and his dog Rusty. Life was quiet, sometimes too quiet, but he liked it that way. But today, something felt different. Rusty barked, loud and sharp. The dog ran toward the cornfield, tail straight and ears alert. Jalen followed, holding a rusty shovel in case it was a wild animal. As he got closer, he noticed something strange in the dirt. A large, dirty sack lay near the fence. It looked like someone had thrown it there in a hurry. It was tied shut with a thick black cord, but the sack, it was moving, slowly, like something weak was inside. Jalen frowned. What the hell? He stepped forward and poked it with the shovel. A soft whimper came from inside. Rusty growled, standing close but not barking anymore. Jalen crouched down, heart beating faster now. He untied the cord, hands shaking slightly. The sack opened, and what he saw made him fall backward. Inside the sack was a girl, but not human. She was small, maybe 4 feet tall, her skin pale silver with faint purple lines. Big glowing eyes looked up at him, wet with tears and full of fear. Her clothes were torn, thin, and covered in dust. Her lips trembled, and she whispered something. He didn't understand the words. Then she tried again, in broken English. Please, not send back. Please. Jalen didn't know what to say. He had seen strange things before. Comets, falling stars, rumors on the radio, but never this. An alien, right here on his land, stuffed in a sack like garbage. He looked around quickly. Was someone watching? The girl's eyes widened, and she pulled the sack's edge up to her face. She was terrified. Jalen stood and looked around the field. That's when he saw it. Footprint. Large ones, going back toward the forest, and claw marks in the dirt, like something dragged the sack here and left her. Rusty barked again, this time toward the trees. A shadow moved between the branches. Jalen's skin turned cold. He picked the girl up gently, surprised how light she was, and hurried back toward the barn. Inside, he laid her on a blanket in the corner and gave her a cup of water. She drank slowly, eyes never leaving his. She flinched at every sound, the wind, the creak of the door, even his voice. He tried to calm her. You're safe now, okay? I won't hurt you. She nodded slowly, but didn't speak again. As she rested, Jalen looked out the barn window. He saw something shimmer in the far forest, like a light reflecting off metal. Something, or someone, was out there, watching. He felt it in his bones. Back inside, the girl had curled into a ball, covering herself with straw like she wanted to disappear. Jalen walked over and gently placed an old coat over her small body. She looked up, confused, and whispered, "Warm?" He nodded. "Yes, you'll be warm now." Outside, the wind picked up, blowing leaves across the field. But Jalen wasn't thinking about the weather. He was thinking about what kind of monster throws someone away in a sack, and what might come looking to take her back. The barn felt quiet, but not peaceful. Rusty growled again, low and steady. Jalen put a hand on the dog's head, eyes still on the field. He didn't know who she was, or what she was, but she was in trouble. And now, so was he. The sun was rising slowly, casting a weak orange glow across the land. But the morning didn't feel peaceful anymore. Farmer Jalen couldn't stop glancing at the barn. Inside it, someone was hiding. Not an animal, not a human, but something in between. The alien girl was still sleeping, wrapped in his coat, buried under straw. She hadn't moved. Much during the night, Jalen had stayed up, sitting by the door with his shotgun across his knees. Rusty the dog didn't sleep either, his ears up, growling low at the night sounds. After feeding the chickens, Jalen walked slowly to the edge of the cornfield. The sack was still there from yesterday, now damp from the morning dew. But what caught his eye was what lay beyond it. Footprints, large, strange, deep prints in the soft mud. Some looked like boots, but huge, and others looked like claws. Jalen followed the tracks carefully, keeping low and quiet. They led from the road to the field, then into the woods. He crouched by one of the prints, too clean, too exact, not made by any animal from Earth. Rusty sniffed it and whined softly, ears pulled back. Then Jalen saw something else. Broken twigs in a straight line, and metal scraps, shiny black chips like from armor or gear. He picked one up and held it to the light. It shimmered blue for a second before turning dull. Not Earth-made, he thought. As he turned to leave, a strange humming noise echoed from deep in the trees. A pulse, almost like a heartbeat, but mechanical. Jalen stepped back fast, his breath frozen. Something was in there, and it wasn't gone. He ran back toward the barn, heart pounding. Inside, the girl was awake, sitting up and hugging her knees. Her silver skin looked pale, and her eyes were wide with fear again. "They're close," she whispered without being asked. "How do you know?" Jalen asked softly. She tapped her head lightly. "I feel them. Here. They speak without words." He stared at her, unsure what to believe. But then Rusty started barking again, this time wildly. He rushed outside and saw it, on the edge of the field. A flash of light, a floating object the size of a small truck, drifting above the trees. It made no sound, but the air felt heavier. Jalen grabbed the girl's hand and pulled her behind the barn. They crouched down, hiding behind the water barrels. The girl trembled, but she didn't scream. She looked up at the sky and muttered words in her own language. Soft, scared prayers. The floating object paused over the barn, then shot upward and vanished in an instant. Gone, but not for good. Jalen stood slowly, eyes still scanning the sky. "What do they want from you?" he asked. The girl hesitated, then answered in a weak voice, "They want me to die quietly." Those words chilled Jalen more than the cold wind. He looked at her, tiny, scared, shaking, but still alive. Someone had stuffed her in a sack and left her like trash, and now her enemies were still searching. "You're not gonna die here," Jalen said firmly. She blinked, surprised by his tone. "You're safe on this land. I don't care who or what they are." She stared at him, then slowly nodded. But Jalen knew words alone weren't enough. That night, he moved her into the root cellar under his house. It was dry, hidden, and had only one entrance. He gave her food, soft bread, some eggs, and a jar of sweet jam. She smiled for the first time after tasting it, and he chuckled. Still, he kept his shotgun close. Rusty lay at the cellar door like a soldier. Jalen built a small trap near the barn gate. Nothing fancy, just rope and boards, but it gave him a sense of control. Before sleeping, he checked the forest again through binoculars. Nothing moved. But he still felt watched. In the cellar, the girl whispered to herself again, her voice soft, full of sadness. Jalen listened from above, but didn't interrupt. He just leaned against the wall, shotgun across his lap, eyes heavy. In the silence, one thing became clear. This wasn't just about hiding a scared girl. He was standing between her and something powerful, something cruel. And whatever it was, it had now seen him too. The night air felt heavier than before. The wind had stopped, and the silence outside was thick. Farmer Jalen stood on his porch, staring at the forest beyond his field. A faint orange glow flickered in the trees. It wasn't the sun, it was fire. He narrowed his eyes, feeling a chill down his spine. Rusty stood beside him, growling low. The glow grew brighter, the sky darkening as smoke crept. The treetops, inside the cellar, the alien girl sat huddled on a blanket. She looked up when Jalen returned, her glowing eyes wide with fear. "There's fire in the woods," he told her, voice quiet but serious. She froze, then whispered, "They burn the past, always." "What do you mean?" Jalen asked, confused. "They follow scent, trail, memory," she said, struggling with the words. "They burn places I touch, so I can't return." Jalen's heart sank. This wasn't just a hunt. It was erasure. Whoever these beings were, they didn't want to catch her. They wanted to erase her completely. He clenched his fists, a deep anger growing inside him. She watched his face closely, then spoke softly. "They want fear. They want me silent. Jalen shook his head. You won't be silent anymore. Not here. She reached into the small torn bag tied to her waist. From it, she pulled a tiny metal triangle, glowing faintly blue. This is all I have from my home, she said, voice shaking. It is a family mark. Proof I lived. Jalen stared at it, the strange symbol on its surface pulsing slowly. It didn't look dangerous, but it felt important. Your people, he asked. They know you're alive? She shook her head, tears forming again. They think I'm dead. They sent prayers to the stars. A loud cracking noise outside made them both jump. Jalen ran to the door and peeked out. In the distance, a tree collapsed in flame, the smoke curling toward the sky. Flashes of blue and red light flickered deeper in the woods. Something was searching through the trees, scanning. They're closer, the girl said, now standing, her body shaking, but her voice firmer. We have no time. Jalen nodded, grabbing his shotgun and a flashlight. He moved fast, storing food and blankets into a bag. If the fire spread, they'd have to run, and the barn would be no help, but the girl stopped him. I cannot keep running, Shah, he said, her voice tired. I ran too far already. Always hiding, always afraid. Jalen looked at her, really looked. She wasn't just scared anymore. She was exhausted, broken. Her silver skin was scratched, her eyes dimmer than yesterday. Then we make this place ready, he said slowly. We don't run, we stand. She blinked, surprised. Stand? He nodded. This is my home. No one burns it without a fight. The girl took a breath, then nodded slowly. I help. I show you what they fear. Together, they moved through the barn, collecting ropes, wires, and tools. She showed him how to twist metal to reflect signals, how to hang glass bottles that hum when movement comes near. Jalen didn't understand the science, but it worked. By nightfall, the barn and house had traps, mirrors, and warning lines across the fields. That evening, as smoke settled on the far trees and the fire turned to embers, the girl sat beside Jalen on the porch. For the first time, she looked up at the stars, not in fear, but in silence. He offered her a piece of bread with jam again. She took it, smiled faintly, and whispered, "Sweet." He chuckled. "It's strawberry. You'd like the field when it's spring." She looked at him carefully. "You are kind." He shrugged. "No one should be thrown away." She nodded, pressing the glowing triangle to her chest. "No, we live." Suddenly, a loud pop echoed from the side of the barn. One of the glass bottle traps shook violently. Something had triggered it. Jalen jumped to his feet, shotgun ready. The girl's body tensed, eyes glowing again. "They're here," she whispered. The glass bottle swung wildly from the rope. Its soft hum had changed to a sharp buzz. Jalen's heart pounded as he stood near the barn door, shotgun in hand. Rusty barked fiercely, ears up, eyes locked on the dark outside. The alien girl stood behind Jalen, her small hands glowing faintly. Her breath. Nothing was fast, but her eyes were sharp. "They send scouts first," she said quietly. "Machines. Not alive, but watching." Jalen nodded and stepped onto the porch. The wind had picked up again, carrying the scent of smoke and something else. Burnt metal. He aimed the flashlight toward the barn's edge. There, just beyond the corn rows, a shadow moved. Too smooth, too fast, a shape like a floating orb. Black, silent, blinking with red light. It scanned the field, stopping at the trap line. Then it turned, slowly, facing Jalen. The farmer didn't wait. He fired once, the shotgun echoing across the night. The blast hit the orb. It sparked and fell with a soft screeching sound. The girl flinched at the noise, but didn't run. "They know now," she whispered. Jalen turned to her. "Then we show them what a farmer can do." They rushed back inside, locking the door and checking every window. Jalen had already placed metal scrap around the house as signal jammers. Thanks to the girl's advice, she climbed into the attic and hung more mirrors. "Light bounces," she explained, "makes their eyes blind for seconds." Seconds might be all they'd have. An hour passed, maybe less. Then it began. A deep hum shook the barn walls, like a ship was hovering close. Rusty barked louder now, his tail low, his body trembling. Jalen peeked through the cracks in the wall. Shapes moved in the field, tall, thin figures with glowing helmets. They carried rods that buzzed with energy, and their steps made no sound. "They come from the shadows," the girl whispered, now beside him. "If you look too long, you see nothing." Jalen took a deep breath, lit the oil barrel near the barn door. The fire roared to life, casting light across the field. The aliens froze in place for a moment, then began to spread out. They hated fire, just like she said. Jalen took his shotgun and fired again, this time hitting one of them. The figure fell, sparks bursting from its chest. Not blood, but wires. "Machines," he muttered. "Not people. More cam." Crawling through the corn like shadows, the girl stepped forward, holding out her hands. A soft wave of light pushed from her palms, hitting one of the intruders. It shook violently, then fell silent. She gasped, holding her chest. "It hurts to use," she said, "but I had to." Jalen grabbed her arm and pulled her back. "You did enough," he said firmly. "Rest." Suddenly, a loud crash hit the barn wall. A large figure stepped through. Taller than the others, wearing silver armor and a black visor. Its voice was cold, crackling like static. "Return the subject. Human, step aside." Jalen raised his shotgun. Not a chance. The figure lifted its weapon, a sharp rod that crackled with red energy. It fired. Jalen ducked, the wall behind him bursting in sparks. The girl screamed and ran to him, pressing her hand against his shoulder where the beam had grazed him. A warm light spread through his skin. Pain faded slowly. "You saved me," he muttered, blinking. "I said I won't run anymore," she whispered, eyes fierce. Jalen stood, blood-stained but alive. The figure advanced again, but this time Jalen kicked over a barrel of fuel. The fire spread fast, flames rising between them and the attacker. The figure stopped, its visor flashed rapidly, as if confused or blinded. Then, with a low hiss, it backed away into the dark, disappearing with the others. Smoke filled the barn now, but they were still standing. Rusty barked behind them, tail wagging with nervous relief. The girl looked at Jalen's arm, then his eyes. "You protect me, like family," she said softly. Jalen didn't answer right away. He looked out at the burning fields and then at her. "You're not just some subject," he said slowly. "You're a living soul, and you're safe here." For now, the attackers were gone. But deep in the woods, lights still flickered. The real war had not yet begun. The fire still crackled outside. The barn, black smoke curled into the cold sky. But for the first time, the night was quiet. The attackers had disappeared into the woods, leaving only burn marks and metal pieces behind. Inside the barn, Farmer Jalen sat on a wooden stool. His left arm was bandaged with a torn shirt, and his shotgun leaned beside him. The alien girl sat across from him on a stack of hay, her glowing eyes dim, tired. But she was no longer afraid. Jalen poured water into a metal cup and handed it to her. She took it slowly and sipped. "You okay?" he asked, his voice rough from smoke and pain. She nodded, then said softly, "You saved me." "You did the same," he replied, looking at his healing wound. Silence sat between them for a moment. Then Jalen leaned forward. "I want to know," he said. She tilted her head. "Know what?" "Everything. Who you are. Why they want you gone." The girl looked down, her fingers gripping the cup tightly. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "My name is Lena." Jalen waited. Lena took a breath, then began. "My world was soft," she said. "Mountains sang. Trees glowed. We lived in peace. Never fought. Never hunted." Her words came slowly, her accent thick, but Jalen listened carefully. "We made things. Not for war, but for beauty," she continued. "Lights that dance, music that heals. My family was known. Artists, creators." She pulled the small glowing triangle from her waist again. "This is my family symbol," she said, holding it close to her heart. "Passed from mother to daughter for many lifetimes." Jalen nodded, watching her gently. "But then, they came," she said, her eyes going cold. traitors, hunters from dark space. They wanted power, and they took me. Her voice cracked. I was just a child, not strong, not special. But I glowed, she whispered. They thought it meant something. A signal, a secret. They wanted to break it out of me. Jalen's fists clenched. They sold me. Like food, like metal, she said, blinking fast. Each time worse. Chains, needles, darkness. Rusty whimpered and came to sit beside her. She placed her hand on the dog's head and smiled weakly. One day, one guard forgot to lock the cage fully. I ran. They chased me. I crawled into a crate. And someone threw it away here. Jalen exhaled, eyes dark. You were treated like trash, he said. She nodded. And still, I live. He looked at the glowing triangle, then at her. They don't want you alive because you remind them what they did, he said. They want to erase you because you survived. Lena's eyes shimmered, but not with tears. This time, with something deeper. Hope, maybe, or courage. You understand, she whispered. Jalen stood and walked to the barn door, looking at the field. Black soil, broken traps, signs of battle. They'll come back, he said. Lena stood beside him. Yes, with more. He turned to her. We'll need help. Her face turned uncertain. Your people. They'll fear me. Not all of them, he said. Some will listen. Some will see what I see. She looked up at him. And what do you see? He gave a small smile. A girl who deserves better. A girl who fought without a weapon. Who lived when others wanted her gone. She blinked, lips trembling. No one ever said that, she said softly. Not even my own voice. Jalen walked over to his old radio, dust-covered and half-broken. He adjusted the dial, turning knobs slowly. Static filled the barn, then faint sounds of distant voices came through. If I can reach someone who still believes in right and wrong, maybe we have a chance, he said. Lena looked at the sky through a gap in the roof. Stars blinked above them, quiet and cold. My people. If they knew I lived, would they come? She asked. Jalen looked at the glowing triangle. Then we'll call them too, he said. The fire outside faded, but danger was not gone. In the deep woods, metal feet moved quietly. New orders were given. Find the girl, destroy the witness, erase the record. But in a quiet barn, lit only by moonlight, two souls were no longer afraid, because now Lena's story had been spoken, and that made her real again. The sun hadn't risen yet, but the ground shook, just a little, like heavy machines were moving under the soil. Farmer Jalen stood outside the barn with Lena beside him. They had barely slept, but there was no time for rest now. The air feels wrong, Lena whispered, touching the dirt with her fingers. They come, in numbers. Jalen adjusted the strap on his old shotgun. I've defended this land from coyotes, wolves, and thieves, he said. Now I'll defend it from them too. They'd prepared everything they could. Old farm tools had been turned into traps, wires stretched across the fields, tied to bells, flares, and hidden holes. Oil barrels sat near fences, waiting to be lit. Even the scarecrows had been wired with sharp metal to confuse heat-seeking machines. Rusty stayed close, his ears low, sensing danger before any sound came. Then, just before dawn, the attack began. The first warning came from the field. A loud ding as one of the bell traps rang out, then another, and another, getting closer each second. Jalen lit a torch and threw it toward the oil barrels. Flames burst up with a roar, lighting the field like fire in a storm. Figures moved through the smoke, tall, thin, and fast. Some walked, others crawled with spider-like legs. They made no sound, only red lights blinking from their heads. They send machines first, Lena said, stepping back. They test defenses before they come themselves. Jalen didn't wait. He aimed his shotgun and fired. Boom, one down, sparks flying. He pulled the next shell and fired again. Metal twisted and fell, But more kept coming. Dozens of them, walking through the smoke, climbing over each other. Lena raised her hands and sent out a pulse of energy. Blue waves that made two of them freeze in place, then fall. But she gasped, her nose bleeding. "It costs too much," she whispered, falling to one knee. "Save your strength," Jalen said, pulling her behind a metal cart. He grabbed a pitchfork and threw it, straight into the chest of another crawler. "Old tools still work," he muttered. Suddenly, the ground near the barn exploded. A larger machine, armored and glowing, stepped into view. It had arms like steel blades and legs that smashed through the earth. Its voice boomed through the air, robotic and deep. "Human interference detected. Eliminate and recover target." Jalen grabbed his last flare and struck it, then threw it into the second oil barrel. The explosion sent fire up the machine's back. It screamed in digital noise, flailing. That was the moment Lena stood again, eyes glowing fiercely. She raised both hands and pushed forward, this time with more force. A wave of light hit the machine, short-circuiting it. It twitched, sparked, then collapsed. Smoke rose all around them, but still, they stood. The barn was scorched, and fences had been crushed, but their traps had slowed the machines, and their courage had stopped the leader. Jalen helped Lena sit down near the well. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "I feel lighter." "You should," he smiled. "You just fried a walking tank." She smiled back, then looked toward the forest. "The real leader hasn't come yet," she said, her voice suddenly serious. Jalen followed her gaze, just in time to see the sky turn dark. A ship, silent, smooth, and shaped like a triangle, hovered above the forest line. It didn't glow. It didn't make a sound. It just watched. "That's not a scout," Jalen said. Lena whispered, "That is the one who gave the order to erase me." Jalen stared at the ship. Then he turned toward his old shed. Inside it was something he hadn't touched in years. A crate, marked with warning signs. "Do not use. Unstable. Prototype only." "What's that?" Lena asked as he dragged it out. "An old military fuel cell. Bought it. Cheap years ago. Was gonna build a water heater," he said. "But I think it can serve a better purpose." He pulled out wires, strapped a metal core to a wheelbarrow, and pointed it toward the field. "You sure it works?" she asked. Jalen laughed. "Nope, but if it doesn't, we're dead anyway." As the enemy ship hovered silently, and the smoke cleared from the battle, the ground lit up one more time, this time from something built by a human farmer, with fire, steel, and a bit of madness. The war wasn't over, but now the hunter knew. This wasn't just a scared girl in a sack anymore. This was a home, and no machine could crush that without a fight. The sky was quiet again. The smoke had faded, and the flames had burned low, but the ground still carried scars. Blackened earth, broken machines, torn wires, and shattered mirrors. Farmer Jalen sat on the porch, hands dirty, arms sore, but his eyes steady. Rusty lay at his feet, tail wagging gently, ears relaxed for the first time in days. Beside him stood Lena, the small, silver-skinned girl who had once been dumped in a sack. Now she stood tall, not just alive, but changed. Together they looked at the sky. The enemy ship had disappeared into the clouds after the blast from Jalen's homemade fuel core. It hadn't attacked again. It hadn't dared. "They saw," Lena whispered. "They saw we don't run anymore." Jalen nodded. "They saw you're not alone." He stood slowly and walked to the old workbench near the barn. On it was a small device, part of the wreckage from the enemy scout machines. Lena had spent the morning fixing it, using parts from her family mark, the glowing triangle. "What is it exactly?" Jalen asked, wiping sweat from his neck. "A beacon," she replied. "One that speaks in the language of stars." She pressed her fingers over the top, and the device lit up. Soft, golden, warm. Jalen blinked, watching the light rise into the sky like a small flame carried by the wind. "It calls only one thing," she said, "hope." He stared at her for a long moment. "Your people, will they come?" he asked carefully. She hesitated, then nodded. "If they hear it, yes, but it may take time, or never." Jalen looked down at the dirt under his boots, then up at the barn. Everything was changed now because of her. I'm not going anywhere, he said. This land's stubborn, just like me. Lena smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She walked to the edge of the field, looked out at the forest. She was quiet for a long while, then turned to him. If they come, I may have to go. He didn't reply. The wind blew gently, carrying the scent of smoke and wildflowers. Then he said softly, "You should go, if it means finding your family again." Her voice trembled. But this was the first place I was safe. Jalen chuckled. It's just a beat-up farm, full of old junk. She looked at him. It's more than that. It's the first place someone saw me. Silence again, but not heavy this time. Just soft, like morning fog. Suddenly, the beacon blinked 3 times, slow, then fast, then slow again. Lena gasped, running to it. They heard it, she said. Someone heard it. Jalen stepped closer. Your people? I don't know, but someone not like them, someone not hunting. She placed her hand on the beacon, and a soft voice echoed from it. The language was strange, musical, full of rising and falling tones. But Lena's face lit up with tears. She looked at Jalen and nodded slowly. They found me, she whispered. My family. They searched. They never stopped. Jalen smiled, but it didn't hide the sadness in his eyes. So, this is goodbye? Lena wiped her eyes, stepped close, and held out her hand. No, she said firmly. This is a choice. He looked down at her small hand, then at the sky where the light had gone. He had lost many things in life. His parents, his wife, his son, his peace. But today, he had found something no war could take. The power to protect someone who had no one, and the chance to give her the freedom to choose. You're free, Lena, he said, placing his rough hand on her shoulder. You choose your path now. Not them. Not even me. She nodded, then whispered, Then I choose both. He raised an eyebrow, confused. If they come, she said, I will meet them. Tell them I'm alive, but I will return. This land is also my home now. Tears welled in Jalen's eyes, but he didn't let them fall. He just gave a quiet nod. Then I'll save your spot on the porch, he said, smiling, and under the morning light, with broken machines scattered like dead ghosts, a farmer and an alien girl stood on soil that had once known only crops and silence. Now it knew hope, now it knew family, and somewhere beyond the stars, the message still glowed, that mercy had been given, that kindness had taken root, and that no one, not even a girl in a sack, was ever truly alone again.